Howdy folks, and welcome back to Cold Waters with Commander Jingles McJingleberry. I decided that I'm feeling reasonably more confident with how this whole thing works that I would have a go of one of the two campaigns. There are two, one set in the 60s and is significantly harder because your torpedoes are terrible, and the other set in the 80s at the height of the Cold War, which is significantly easier because you get to use much more capable submarines, such as the Los Angeles class, and you get much better torpedoes like the Mark 48. Now, one thing that you do need to bear in mind is that I am still very much a noob at this, although I am feeling a little bit more confident and I have certainly learned a little bit more. But the first few missions that you're going to see me play through in this campaign were before I started watching Jive Turkey, who's another YouTuber who served for 20 odd years on board 688 attack subs as a sonar man, and so actually knows what he's doing, as opposed to me, who just sat in the ops room taking notes on various different anti-submarine warfare exercises while in the Navy, and then read a few Tom Clancy books and watched The Hunt for Red October. So a little bit of knowledge can be a dangerous thing, and I do have a little bit of knowledge. But we're going to have a go anyway, and I didn't do too badly, and hopefully you should see me getting better as I take more and more notes from watching Jive Turkey play through this game as well. I cannot recommend his channel enough, by the way, and he does stream Cold Waters most days. I'm going to be putting the link to his channel down below in the video description. If you have even a passing interest in this game and want to see somebody who's actually good at playing Cold Waters as opposed to me, who's just lucky, then Jive Turkey, former US Navy 688 attack sub sonar man, who does actually know what he's doing. Anyway, war has now been declared. The Reds have attacked West Germany. So, Commander Jingles McJingleberry, in command of the USS Hyram G Rickover SSN-709, we have a mission to locate and sink Soviet submarine tenders. Secondary objectives, targets of opportunity, are always going to be any enemy submarines or other surface vessels in the area, but the primary target are going to be those submarine tenders to cripple the Red Banner Northern Fleet's ability to maintain submarine operations in the vicinity of the Greenland-Iceland-UK gap. So, cast off, anchors away from Holy Loch. Now, when you're moving on the campaign map, this isn't something that's actually mentioned anywhere, but which I found out the hard way. Holding down, I think it's the left mouse button, means you are cruising at 20 knots, and if you run into a contact, you will start the game at 20 knots and they will probably hear you. Holding down the right mouse button, or it's possibly the other way around, that cuts the speed down to 10 knots. So when you're transiting to your operations area, you want to be going at full speed, or cruising speed anyway, 20 knots. But once you have the target, like this submarine contact that's just popped up, I'm now slowing down to 10 knots to make my approach, so I can hopefully begin this engagement at a speed of 10 knots, where he's probably not going to have already detected me when the actual battle starts. So we're at a depth of 150 feet on a heading of 117 degrees with a speed of 10 knots, and we have a new sonar contact bearing of 337 degrees designated Sierra 1. Local conditions are clear with a moderate breeze, there's a moderate surface duct and a moderate thermal layer at 185 feet. So, first thing I'm going to do is rig the boat for ultra quiet. And since I don't actually have a contact at the moment, all I know is that he was on a bearing of 337 degrees, I'm going to swing the boat around to get the best possible return from my towed array sonar. And there, contact re-established with Sierra 1. The towed array sonar is modelled in the game, but it's not rendered. You can't actually see it. It works best if you're at an angle of 90 degrees from wherever the contact datum is. And remember, that contact Sierra 1, that's just a datum. That's an estimate of where we think Sierra 1 is. We still don't know quite what it is, and I'm attempting to classify it now. Oh, and there, we got a much better target solution now. That estimated range just went from nearly 50,000 yards down to 18,500 yards, and his target motion analysis does look a lot like a November class. So I'm going to go ahead and call that a November. Now, my targeting solution is still not particularly good. We've got his range, we've got his bearing, but we don't know his course or his speed. So I'm going to continue to refine my target solution. You'll notice that I am above the thermal layer, and he is below the thermal layer, and it looks like he's descending, so I'm going to pass below the thermal layer as well and attempt to refine my target solution. So still going nice and slow, because I do not want to start cavitating. We got a better contact on him earlier because he started cavitating. He was going too fast and his propeller started creating bubbles in the water. Now as we pass through the layer, we lose our contact. Now I didn't realise this at the time, but I have since learned that this is because there's a thing called the shadow zone just underneath the layer. It's actually quite complicated, but for all intents and purposes, all you really need to understand is that at a depth of around about 20 feet below the thermal layer, there's a shadow zone where you are effectively mostly invisible, but it's very difficult for you to hear anything outside of the shadow zone as well. So I'm going to continue to descend, and hopefully we should be able to reacquire this contact. Now, if I'm correct, and that is a November, this is anything but a fair fight. The Novembers were actually the first class of Soviet nuclear-powered submarines to be built. They entered service in late 1958, and I think the last one was retired from service sometime in the 1990s. They were completely obsolete at the time they were retired, and on paper they're no match whatsoever for a Los Angeles class attack boat, but if a November gets behind you, gets into your baffles and gets the first torpedo off, they can take out a Los Angeles just as easily as an Akula or an Alpha can. So I'm a little concerned that I haven't managed to reacquire this guy as a contact, because Novembers were very noisy as far as submarines go, certainly a hell of a lot noisier than a diesel electric boat, and even noisier than the early American nuclear attack boats. The Russians went to great lengths to try to cut down on the amount of noise that the Novembers put out. Rubber coating on the hull, low noise variable pitch propellers, all the major machinery on board the boat was connected to the deck via vibration dampening mounts, but the problem was the reactor. The Soviets had more powerful reactors than the Americans, but they pushed out a heck of a lot more noise. So I am quite concerned that I haven't been able to reacquire this guy. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go fishing. I'm going to fire a torpedo off in the direction of that contact datum. And then we are going to climb above the layer so that if he snapshots a torpedo down the bearing of attack, the seek ahead should have a hard time finding me. At least that's the theory. Fingers crossed. Right, the range wasn't that great, so that's the thing about the Mark 48 torpedoes. Once it goes active, it could keep going for another 4,000 yards. Had very, very good range. Certainly better than the equivalent Soviet torpedo. So let's get this thing up above the layer and clear the datum, which basically means I don't want to be where I was when I fired that torpedo in case there's another torpedo coming back in the opposite direction. I'm still not convinced he's ever detected me, although he did start cavitating earlier on. And why would you start cavitating unless they screwed up, which may have happened. It could have just been a navigation error. But it's possible that he did get a contact on me and started cavitating as he began to descend to get below the layer. I guess we're going to find out. I am now above the layer, so we're going to level off the planes here, zero the bubble, and again we're mostly broadside onto that contact datum to give the towed array sonar the best possible chance of picking that guy up again. And also to give me warning of any torpedoes that have been fired back at me. Shouldn't be too long now before our weapon goes active. I really should have set that torpedo, the initial one I fired, to active sonar, because we don't know where the November is. But I didn't. So I've cut the wires and I'm loading a second torpedo into tube 1 and I'm setting this one to go active just in case the first fishing expedition doesn't come up with anything. Hopefully, once he detects that torpedo, he's going to start putting the speed on. He may even start cavitating and I should be able to pick him up again. May not need to use the second torpedo, once the first torpedo reaches its activation range, it's perfectly capable of finding and sinking a target by itself. But remember, once you've cut the wires and that torpedo goes active, it's no longer your friend, which is another very good reason for clearing the datum area. Let's have a look and see what the torpedo can see. So far, nothing. Nope. Diddly and squat. Well, a couple of minutes go by and I've got nothing. The torpedo still hasn't found a thing, and I begin to come up to periscope depth to pop up the ESM mast and just make sure we're alone up here, when I reacquire the contact. Now, he is some distance away. Estimated. Let's not forget, my target solution is still very, very poor, but we have a contact. Based on the sonar return, he's estimated at being 70,000 yards away. Now, I do not believe that for a second. I still have a very, very poor target solution. It's only 23%. But now that we know in roughly what direction he is, we can start to refine that contact. The November can do 30 knots submerged, but there's no way he would have opened the range to 70,000 yards. So he is a lot closer than that datum would suggest. The solution keeps firming up. We've now got a speed, but again, I don't believe that range estimate, not for a second. I think my torpedo is just about on top of him at this point. You see, what can happen, and I don't pretend to really understand how it all works, is that the various different layers in the water can cause that sonar return to basically bounce between the surface and the thermal layer. So you'll pick up his course, you'll pick up his bearing, you may even pick up his speed, but the range estimate can be wildly off because you're picking up a sonar return that's bouncing off various different water layers. So, not for one bingo, we got him. Torpedo found him. We got him. Oil slick on the surface. Yep. Yeah. I knew the range estimate was wildly off. But we got him. Torpedo found him anyway. So, Scratch 1 November. Not an incredibly capable submarine, but, well, any submarine is incredibly dangerous if you're in a surface vessel. So, while that wasn't the mission, we are actually out here looking for submarine tenders. It's always good to be able to take out an enemy submarine. So, no contacts, no weapons in the water, no vessels nearby. We should be good to go and continue on the mission. So, I'm still trying to locate this submarine tender group, which... Ooh, hang on, what's going on? Ah. Sorry, Denmark. Nothing I could do about that. Aha! What's this? A surface group. Okay. Slowing down, and bingo, we have made contact. Right, what do we have? We are at a depth of 150 feet on a heading of 160 with a speed of 10 knots, and we have a new sonar contact bearing 114 designated Sierra 1. Local conditions on the surface are scattered with a gentle breeze. There is no surface duct, and there is no thermal layer. Okay, all hands, man your battle stations. First thing I'm going to do is rig the boat for ultra quiet, because we are very, very close to contact Sierra 1. In fact, I already have a pretty good solution on it. There's also a second contact out there, Sierra 2. Let's see if we can classify Sierra 1. At the same time, we're going to turn the boat to port for two reasons. One, I want to get broadside onto them, again, to give the towed array the best possible chance of picking up any additional contacts, because there's going to be more than two of them out there. And also, I am very close to these guys. Bingo, there we go. Contact Sierra 3 just picked up. Don't know what it is just yet. But because I am barely 10,000 yards away, once I start putting weapons in the water, if they return fire, I'm not going to have an awful lot of time before their weapons reach me in which to clear the datum and get the hell out of there. Let's start trying to classify Sierra 1. Let's see what he is. That looks like a Mark III Grisha class Corvette. That's an anti-submarine warfare Corvette. He's got the RBU 6000 anti-submarine rocket launchers. He's got 2 torpedo tubes and he carries a lot of depth charges. So I don't really want to be anywhere near him. And that's my primary target. That's a Don. That's a submarine tender. Very heavily armed submarine tender. And has a comprehensive electronic warfare suite on board as well. Let's see if we can get a picture on Sierra 3. Trying to refine the target motion analysis on the waterfall array there. Not seeing a match just yet. Come on. It is a bit of a patchy contact, but it does look like another Grisha 3. I'm going to go ahead and classify that as a Grisha 3. And that would make sense. You've got one patrolling in front of and one patrolling behind the high value unit, which is the Don submarine tender. No further contacts detected. I do, however, have a pretty good targeting solution on Contact Sierra 1, the first Grisha, so I'm giving him a Mark 48, setting it to go active at a range of 6,600 yards. I'm putting a second weapon in the water against the Don, setting that one to go active and start searching at a range of just over 13,000 yards. And then a third surprise presence in the water for the tail end Charlie, the second Grisha. That one has a little bit further to go, so that one's going to go active at a range of just around about 26,000 yards. And now it's time for me to clear the datum, because they can probably hear those torpedoes coming. Remember, the first one was less than 10,000 yards away, so it's time to get the hell out of here. Now, the bad news is, well, it's not just that those guys are relatively close, but the ambient noise level is only 84 decibels, so it's pretty quiet. And there's no thermal layer for me to hide underneath. So I'm basically just going to have to get distance between myself and them, and for that I'm going to need to come down in depth, because I can't go very fast at this kind of depth without cavitating and blowing my position. Now, in all the excitement when I was releasing my torpedoes, I didn't actually notice until round about now that a fourth contact had appeared on a bearing of 50 degrees further to the north, designated Sierra 4. And it was only when we lost contact on him, because he's pretty much now in my baffles. I've turned the submarine around, he's now in the blind spot, which is a sort of 120 degree cone extending from the rear of the submarine where your sonar isn't going to pick anything up. So there's a fourth target out there somewhere. Now, if you look at the mini-map, you'll see that the Grisha has turned to the north. Now that's fine, because that's still going to put him in the path of one of my torpedoes. I was a little concerned, I can remember while I was playing, I was kind of concerned that he might also suck up the second torpedo that you can see there, but that one has been launched against the Grisha, designated Sierra 3, and he's a good 32,000 yards away. So I didn't really have to worry about it too much, because that torpedo is not set to go active and start searching for a target until long after it's passed by the Grisha. But you can see what the Grisha is doing is he's putting himself between the incoming torpedoes and the Don. So the torpedo designated for the Don, Contact Sierra 2, could also hit the Grisha. Don't forget, I no longer have wire command to these torpedoes. Once they go active, they start searching for the nearest target. Which means I could have expended 2 torpedoes against a Corvette, which would be a bit of a waste. There he is, he's manoeuvring hard now. The torpedoes have got to be right on him. He's definitely going to take one of them. So he's no longer worrying about where I am. That's good. Instead, he's purely concerned with his own survival and trying to protect the Don as well, because that is his mission. Come on. Come on, let's have you. He's really piling the speed on, but he can't outrun the torpedo. All he's doing is delaying the inevitable, and that thing is just a Corvette. So a Mark 48 is really going to mess him up. It's quite surprising that we're seeing them out here, actually, in the middle of the North Atlantic, because the Grisha 3 was just a Corvette. It's marked as a frigate here in the game. It was only ever really intended to operate in coastal waters. Oh, we got him. But is he also going to suck up the second torpedo, the one that was intended for the Don? Now, because I've changed course to clear the datum and avoid counterattack, I've actually lost contact with one of my weapons. It's now in my baffles, so I've actually lost contact with the torpedo that's going for Contact Sierra 3, the second Grisha. I've also lost contact with the Don. And, needless to say, I've lost contact with Sierra 4 that I haven't even classified yet. So, that's okay. I mean, I can do 33 knots submerged, and providing I'm deep enough, they shouldn't hear me. So I've got plenty of time to reacquire these contacts, but we're going to wait and see what the torpedoes do. I still think that the second torpedo I fired against the Don is probably going to get sucked up by the wreck of the Grisha, but well, there's nothing I can do about that. I no longer have control over the torpedo. So I'm going to bring the boat around because I need to reacquire these contacts. And I'm not detecting any kind of attack. So I'm reasonably sure, I mean, they know more or less in which direction I am, but I'm pretty sure they don't actually have a contact. They've seen the torpedoes, but they haven't seen me. So let's see if I can re-establish. Oh, there you go. Yeah, as expected, the torpedo designated for the Don did actually get sucked up by the wreck of the first Grisha, but I still have a third torpedo in the water. That one's going for the second Grisha, and it probably hasn't gone active yet, but I no longer know where that torpedo is. So we've re-established contact with Sierra 3, the second Grisha. We have not yet re-established contact with the Don, who's probably steaming away from me at full speed. And we still haven't re-established contact with Sierra 4. We still have no idea what that is. I do have one torpedo in the water that's still heading for the Grisha 3, contact Sierra 3. But I have no idea where that torpedo actually is at the moment. It should probably be going live and searching for a target in about a minute or so. And oh, yep, active sonar coming from the direction of the Grisha. So he's hunting me, but he probably doesn't have me yet. That's a very weak sonar pulse. So, what to do? Well, it looks like that Grisha is charging straight towards me. He's desperately trying to establish a sonar contact so he can prosecute me and if not sink me, at least drive me away from the Don. And if that is the case, he's probably going to avoid the torpedo that I've earmarked for him by basically passing overhead that torpedo heading in my direction while the torpedo is heading the other way, and getting between me and that torpedo before it goes active and starts searching for a target that isn't there anymore. So I'm probably going to have to pop another weapon in the water against the Grisha, assuming he is heading towards me, which he should be doing because at the end of the day that's his job. Oh, hello, contact in the water there. Is that a sonar boy? Now that shouldn't be a helicopter. That would be a problem, but the Grishas don't carry helicopters, they're too small. So that probably is actually indicating that my contact, the datum that I have for the location of the Grisha, is not as precise as the plot might suggest. He's probably actually right there where the sonar boy contact is, doing a search pattern. So I'm going to speed up time just a little while I transit further to the north, because I want to be clear of the wreck of the first Grisha. And I have a much better contact on the second Grisha now. I've got his bearing, his range, his course and his speed. So, firing point procedure. Tube 4. Torpedo in the water. Say hello to my little friend. About a minute later, we re-established contact with the Don, while the first torpedo is still in the water heading towards the Grisha. So, bearing 87, range 21,500 yards. Tube 4 launched, Mark 48, straight away cut the wires and reload Tube 4. Let's not forget, contact Sierra 4 is still out there somewhere. We don't know where it is, we don't know what it is, but it is still out there and it's probably heading in this direction. I'm going to continue transiting in the north at 10 knots just to clear the datum, although I'm reasonably sure these guys have no idea exactly where I am. And we're going to follow the progress of the torpedo designated for contact Sierra 3, the Grisha 3. There he is, and yep, he's beginning to maneuver. That's evasive action. He's heard the torpedo, he knows it's coming. There is nothing he can do. It's a sad but true fact. Submariners, if you ever speak to a submariner, I've spoken to many submariners over the course of my time in the Navy, as far as a submariner is concerned, there are only two types of warship: submarines and targets. Right? And it's very, very true. A surface vessel stands very little chance against a submarine. If these guys had helicopters, I could have had some problems, because helicopters with dipping sonars and dropping patterns of sonar buoys, they can be a very, very effective deterrent against the submarine attack, but they don't, because they're just Corvettes. So they're doomed. There is no way they are ever going to survive this. I mean, they're going to do the best they can, but right now the best thing these guys can do is bend over, grab their ankles and kiss their ass goodbye, because that Mark 48 is going to make a serious mess of that tiny little Corvette. Even more good news, I don't have to worry about that guy sucking up the second torpedo, there it is, that I put in the water against Sierra 2, the Don, in the same way that the first Grisha, Sierra 1, sucked up the second torpedo intended for the Don, because that Don has turned around and he's making Billy Big steps as far away from the area of action as he possibly can. And with the second torpedo, I made sure that it wasn't set to go active and start searching for a target until long after it had passed the contact area, so it's not going to get sucked up by the wreck of the second Grisha the way the first Grisha ate 2 of my torpedoes. However, if I knew a little bit more about my Mark 48 torpedoes, I don't actually know what its maximum range is, and that Don has had plenty of time to make his escape. So what I'm going to do now is, you can see I've loaded a harpoon, a UGM-84 missile, into tube number 3. And I'm pretty sure, because it's a canister launched weapon, I'm pretty sure I can fire that from a depth of 100 feet. So I'm coming up to that depth, and I'm going to send a harpoon in the direction of the Don, just in case. Nothing like a little bit of insurance. So we're coming up to a depth of 100 feet. And we're going to get that harpoon away. Still a bit concerned about contact Sierra 4 though. Don't know what it is, don't know where it is. And somebody's pinging away on active sonar. And it's not the Grishas, because I've sunk them. And I'm reasonably sure there are no more surface vessels up there. So is that an enemy submarine? Whoa, there he is! He just, well, it's not a particularly good target solution, so I'm not convinced at that estimated range. But he could be right there, and that's right on top of me. So, and he's pinging away with active sonar. I need to classify this guy, because it isn't a particularly good contact. But, well, he's pretty damn close, and he's pinging with active sonar, so do I really have time to refine the targeting solution? I think I'm just going to snap a shot. Range 3,500 yards. Let's get that torpedo in the water. I'm hearing a very, very strong active sonar return here. He may actually be that close. That's point blank range, so screw this. Weapon in the water, and let's start getting the hell out of here. I'm not 100% convinced he does actually have me, however, so I'm not going to do anything stupid. We're still going to stay relatively slow, but let's get some depth, so if I do need to go fast, I can do it without cavitating. I mean, if there's a torpedo coming in my direction, I'm just going to go to flank speed and damn the cavitation, because I need to evade the torpedo. But for the moment, I am not detecting any torpedoes in the water, so let's just assume that he doesn't actually have a solution on me, but start prepping for if he does achieve a solution on me. We can probably afford to go a little bit faster. We're not below 300 feet yet. And there's no thermal layer for me to hide behind while I wait for that torpedo to do its work. Oh, it's gone active. It's found a target. It has found a target. What is it? It's got to be a submarine. Come on, baby, where are you? I've lost the wire. It is. It's a Tango. That's a diesel boat. No wonder I couldn't hear it. Those things are practically silent when they're running on batteries. And the Tango had enough batteries to be able to stay submerged on battery power for over a week before it had to snorkel. But he's been forced to broach the surface. Oh yeah, he's all kinds of screwed. Yep. Go on, baby, have him. Well, the good news for the crew is that they're already on the surface when they take the Mark 48, so they don't have to worry too much about escaping from their doomed submarine. But that is very much a doomed submarine. Yeah. Oh, he's dropped a noisemaker. Is it going to fool the Mark 48? It's... No, no... Oh wait, no, it's circling around again. Yeah, nice try, Ivan. Nice try, but no cigar. You, my son, are going down. Yeah, we've got him. Gonna hit him smack right in the ass. Bingo! Bit of surprise butt sex for the Tango. That just leaves the Dom, which, let's not forget, is my actual primary target. The only thing I haven't sunk yet is the only thing I'm here to sink. Well, we still got that harpoon. I mean, we're reloading a torpedo into Tube 1, but the Don's so far away now. Oh, we've picked him up again. It's not a terrible solution. Yeah, let's come up to missile launch depth and send the harpoon after him. I'm pretty sure I don't have to worry about anything else just now. We only ever made the 4 contacts, and I've sunk 3 of them, so let's bring this boat up to missile launch depth, which I'm not entirely sure, but I think is 100 feet, because the UGM-84 harpoon was launched from a canister. It's encased in a canister until it breaches the surface, and then it has a sort of rocket booster motor, which gets it clear of the water, and then drops off, and then the actual missile's rocket motor takes over. Oh no, we've sunk the Don. Don't need to fire the harpoon. Yeah, the torpedo found it, just as intended. Fantastic, and there he goes. 1 submarine tender going to the bottom. Let's see you resupply your subs now, Ivan. So that is a very successful mission. My first in the campaign, the 1980s Cold War campaign. Although, well, not really cold, it's gone very, very hot. Oh, and just as well, it's just as well that was the last target, because I accidentally breached the surface. Wasn't paying attention. Was too busy celebrating. Oops. Okay, let's get back down to periscope depth. And just for the sake of completion, we'll get back down to periscope depth. We'll pop the ESM mast up, see if there are any other contacts. And if not, we'll call this one a wrap. And see how we did. Yep, we're good. Let's get out of here and continue our patrol. 4 vessels sunk, 2 Grisha 3s, a Don and a Tango class diesel electric submarine. Not bad. No damage sustained. I don't think they ever knew where I was. And Com Sublant, very, very happy with Commander Jingles McJingleberry of the USS Hyram G Rickover. Superb effort in locating and eliminating the enemy's ability to replenish their submarine force at sea. Keep up the good work. Stand by for new orders on this downlink. And yep, the press love me too. Do I get a medal for this? I think I deserve a medal. Go on, boss. Give us a medal. They're only small. You've got plenty. You can spare one. You won't miss it. No medal? I'm not going to get a medal for this, am I? He's going to tell me hard work is its own reward or some shit like that. Yeah, he's got another mission for me. Right. No medal this time. But that's where we're going to be continuing in the next Cold Waters video. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed this one. And as always, take care. And I'll catch you next time.